call this meeting. We'll go ahead and excuse Mrs. King. She's under doctor's care. Mr. Fritz will be filling in for her tonight, and Mr. Kropp will be here through technology. So if you could turn off any phones or devices or turn them to vibrate, and we'll call this Monday, August 9th, 2021 meeting to order. If we could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Precious Lord, dear God, you are our rock, our Redeemer, and we thank you for your perfect faithfulness. We ask that you help us to fix our eyes on you, that you help us to restore our community, that we are about the business of Newton Falls, and that we glorify you in the process. We do pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Okay, if you want to call for the roll there, Mr. Fritz.
Yes, sir. Mr. Zimmerman?
Here.
Mr. Bariak?
Here.
Ms. Fletcher?
Present.
Ms. Braymeyer? Mr. Kropp?
Here. Did you say present?
He said here.
Okay. All right. Public comments limited to agenda items. Name, address, 3 minutes until previously requested for additional time, and we have two individuals. First would be
Mayor.
Miss Julie Lemon.
When Mr. Kropp came on, it blared so loud, it just about blew my eardrums out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Lemon, did you want the time? Okay.
Good evening. I would like to address a few things on the agenda for this evening's special meeting. First, I'd like to address Ordinance 2021-13. Sorry, my name is Julie Lemon, 2750 Easter Road. I'm 100% in agreement with that and counsel on this. And I personally feel that Ordinance 2021-02 was very ambiguous in nature, and that the deal itself seemed to the public like there was something being hidden in the contract or the sales agreement that, has all been in vain, basically. I applaud the efforts of council for looking out for the best interests of the city's assets, and encourage you to always be good stewards of the people's tax dollars. Next, I would like to address the personnel matters that will be causing this council to recess into executive session this evening. I would like to make a few points about the two village employee job performances that's public record in nature. And I would like to start off by discussing Ordinance 2020-19. This wasn't on the agenda on June 15th, 2020, and was brought to the floor as an emergency. It failed to receive the proper vote and did not pass as an emergency. What should have happened on June 24th, 2020 special meeting was for it to be presented as a new ordinance of 2020-whatever the ordinance would have been. Instead, 2020-19 was passed as a regular ordinance. Think about that, a regular ordinance. That means per the ORC, the voters had the right to referendum it. The same situation in terms apply to Ordinance 2021-02, which was also a regular ordinance in regards to the AMP deals. There is no emergency whatsoever declared on these. But what did happen was, at the time, the majority of council, law director, city clerk, and last but not certainly not least, the former city manager, all played their part to pen, pass, and basically shove this piece of legislation down the community's throat. Naturally, just about everybody who lives in Newton Falls has the heart of a tiger, so the clause came out and a referendum was filed in April of this year. This referendum was met with total resistance of the 2 staff members up for discipline. The city clerk, Kathy King, penned a letter to Ms. Penrose at the Board of Elections on April 30th, 2021, in regards to Ordinance 2021-02, which I'd like to read. Dear Ms. Penrose, please find and close the referendum petitions in reference to Newton Falls Ordinance 2021-02. It is my understanding that only legislative acts are subject to referendum and administrative acts are not subject to referendum. Please see the attached letter from our law director. I would respectfully request a formal review of these petitions to determine whether this ordinance is subject to referendum. Please notify me as soon as you have made a determination. Sincerely, Kathy M. King, City Clerk. So, Ordinance 2021-02 was an ordinance authorizing the village to reduce electric rates for all residential and small business customers through a contract or contracts for the transfer of municipal-owned transmission equipment to AMP Transmission LLC, a subsidiary of American Power, Municipal Power, in return for a payment. So that's just what those were. At no time or place in this ordinance does it say that council approved or granted specific authorization to the former city manager. Therefore, in plain sight, it is legislative, not administrative, and is very much subject to referendum due to the fact, again, it's a regular ordinance. The next instance would be the recall of Councilwoman Braymeyer. I have never in my life seen such resistance from administrative staff members, pushing their will above the will of the good people of this community. Money has been spent on attorneys, and both staff members have clearly gone outside the scope of their duties. One phrase comes to mind when I think of the behavior of both staff members: voter suppression. The actions, letters, and behaviors of both Mrs. King and Mr. Fritz are beyond appalling. Action must be taken. It is imperative to the prosperity and peace of this community that council holds these two accountable for their rebellious actions against council and, more importantly, the good people of this town. I have heard on many occasions Councilman Baryak saying, "Let the people vote." I have heard Councilwoman Spletzer asking questions and getting no answers and constantly deny the information she seeks in writing or on the record. I have heard Councilman at Large Brian Kropp, before he was ever appointed to council, telling everyone in this community to educate themselves. I heard former Councilman Jim Mwanansu stand for the rights of the citizens and wanted those in authority to be transparent and accountable. I have heard our Honorable Mayor Kenneth Klein say that we have a code of ethics that we stand by, and we follow that, and the people have the right to vote. To the citizens of this town, one thing is clear. A line has been drawn, and one side is the council, and the other side is administration. Fists are up, and we're in the 15th round. The people of this community need a champion. We need council to be our champion and to stand up for the will of the people. We need to be able to vote on issues that may, can, and will have effects on our households. I am beseeching council to look and listen to the actions I have just spoken about. All three I have referenced were since June 15th, 2020. That's just 3 occasions. Our community does not need staff that will put their own agenda above the people's rights. I am beseeching council to begin the process of removal for Mr. Fritz and Mrs. King. I am asking that the voters be put first over their comfy and cozy contracts. And I am humbly asking council to remember that those on council, the administration, and village employees are public servants. You serve the people of this community, and the good of the people must always be first. Thank you.
Mr. Richard Curlin. Mr. Richard Curlin. Alias Chris Kringle.
Rick Curlin, 611 North Canal Street. I first wanted to express my gratitude that City Council perhaps may have an interim city manager with the experience that Pamela Purdy has. I have only checked in certain different spots, but her credentials are spotless. To have a command over the financial situations that may arise here or have arisen and haven't been taken care of is well within her realm of capabilities. Her ability to get along with people and yet get results is also proven by her long-term relationship with different companies. It's all fact. She's not done anything wrong, but on the reverse has done everything right. She and her husband has opened up a store, have worked for the city. She is the chief, I will call her, of the Newton Falls Area Commerce Association. Her resume is just outstanding. And when you think that we right now do not have on site, I say that right here, we don't have a city clerk, we don't have a finance officer. I mean, my goodness, that's quite a spot to be put in. But I'm telling you all, she can do it. She can do it. She has shown she can do it. The other thing I'd like to speak on is something I've spoke on before, and I was glad that Julie mentioned it, and that is the referendum dealing with 2021-02. Again, the only problem I have is that our law director has not offered up, although he's been asked by council to offer up something other than a number, the budget, that this is the second time around, or a second ordinance. Excuse me. I don't see that anywhere. It's 417 pages of the budget. It's disappointing that the public, and especially the council, can't get what they've asked for. And to be quite candid with you, at least several days ago, and that might have changed, that the Board of Elections couldn't get it. Now, it's quite possible that's changed, but I don't know that this council has any proof. Now, I'm holding right now is the original from 1966 of the charter. And what it says in here is that this referendum on 2021-02 is legislative. There's no doubt about it. None. Here it is. So this is 55 years old. So there's no doubt. I'm not going to say anything else about any wrongs or wrongs that someone else has done. But I will say that the council must take command of this situation. Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have for 10 minutes. If anybody would like to come up and use their 3 minutes, come up and give your name, your address. Okay, if not, then we'll go ahead and we'll move to the business items for this evening. And the first item is number 1, a motion to appoint Pam Pretty of 3725 Hallock-Sook Road as interim city manager of Newton Falls for a period of Monday, August 9th, 2021, which is today, until a permanent city manager is hired. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Crop, okay. Any discussion? But before we go into discussion, I got to ask you a question, Mr. Fritz. I think I sent you an email on that. Mr. Lynch had made a comment that he thought that, or never mind, that's the wrong piece of legislation. Yeah, we've got to talk about that later. Any discussion on this?
Yes.
Mr. Boriak, you have the floor.
Very simply, this council has a desire for openness, and hopefully we can start to work with our neighbors again, our fellow townships in that. I believe, I want the public to know that there were people asked, people graciously refused. Ms. Purdy had has very high credentials. It's only going to be for a few weeks. There's going to be a vetting committee. I feel that she can well do the job with the help of our very decent superintendents of all the departments to assist. I'm sure they will help her. With that, that's all I want to say right now.
Okay, would anybody else like to weigh in? Mr. Zimmerman, Ms. Spletzer, Mr. Kropp?
Yes, I would.
Okay, you have the floor.
We just relieved our city manager of his duties. The big reason made for his removal was perceived fraudulent dealings with money. Perceived fraudulent dealings with money. There has never been anything proven yet that anything was done wrong, yet we forced him out. And we want to bring someone into this position that has something like 25 different counts against them of embezzlement.
Point of
25
order.
different
Point
counts.
of order.
What's the point of order?
Accusations.
Yeah, there is under no attacks on the character of an individual that's unproven, so.
It is not an attack. It is based on public record of her indictments that are public record.
Well, if there was something there, she would have been convicted. She hasn't been convicted of anything.
But it was dismissed without prejudice. Can someone please tell me what that is? That means it can be reopened at any time. No. That's just what I want to see is that, excuse me, I am talking. Excuse me,
Quiet.
please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Continue.
Just with these against hanging over her head, hanging over our head, do we want that brought against the city right now, based on what we forced somebody out as? That is my question. Do we want to be under that scrutiny again? Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Spletzer, Mr. Kropp, would you like a first address?
Mr. Mayor, if I can be recognized.
Yes, you have the floor, Mr. Kropp.
I'd like to make a simple statement, I think, in reference to why the previous village manager was let go or relieved of his duties. It had a lot to do with communication and openness and willingness to work with council members. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. And I believe Ms. Purdy has already shown the ability to work with others and cooperate and communicate very well. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Spletzer, would you like a first address?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Boriak or Mr. Zimmerman, would you like a second address?
And just my final question is, we're dealing with a $14 million business here in town. A $14 million business. I just want to know what experience she has running a $14 million business. That is my other question. Thank you.
Okay. Shh. Mr. Boriak, would you like an address?
I don't want to rehash what I just said, but I have no doubt in my mind that this council will move forward with openness, and Ms. Purdy will help us chart the way until we get a permanent city manager, which according to the charter, we have to have one. And I feel nobody can do it better right now, and I shame on our council people that are going to degrade anybody that steps up. Shame on them. It sounds like another defender and attack on. They attacked you too.
Point of
Shame
order.
on you.
All right, let's keep it down.
Shame on you.
Okay, is that all, Mr. Boriak? Okay. Ms. Spletzer, Mr. Kropp, would you like an address? Okay. If
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm going to
I would
say
just-
is,
I'm sorry, I waited a little too long, but
Okay.
I would just like to think that I feel that Pam Pretty does contain the qualifications to get this ship righted, and I think that she is going to be one of the ones that helps us start healing this community too. I support Pam Pretty.
you know, as the interim, we're not looking for an individual that's been a city manager for 3 years here, 4 years to look into the big project. Basically, an individual, not that you lower your standards of where you want to be, because when I think it comes to Pam Purdy, you're definitely not lowering your standards at all. We're basically stepping up. But the fact of the matter is, in reality, what are we looking for? We're looking for an individual to continue to drive the ship, the daily operations of the community, to be that transition piece. Well, we're vetting a long-term city manager, and that's, I believe, very important that we do, that the next person that comes in, that's the right person for the job. You know, when Pam applied to myself, and everybody here has her application, I was amazed by the individual that we would be getting, not only as a transition piece, but as a solid individual that I would trust to do what she's going to do. The financial background that she has, the management background that she has, the academic background that she has, and the day-to-day people skills that she has. And that's the strength that she's going to bring, is to be able to work with the individuals in here. So we're definitely more than getting a solid individual, and that's all I have to say. We're definitely not settling for somebody. So if Mr. Fritz wants to go ahead and call for the roll.
Ms. Bletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes,
Okay, Ms. Purdy is now our interim city manager. And the thing I'd like to ask you, Mr. Fritz, is I talked to Mrs. King today, and we don't have a stipend for an individual that's brought in off the street. We have to set an amount of compensation. So I'm not sure if we would have to amend that, or how you would like to do. I mean, she's offered to do it for a thing of pot roast or a donut or something like that, but I think that, you know, she's deserving of a lot more than that we need to compensate her of some type of compensation.
If the council can agree to a number,
Okay.
let's probably amend it tonight and put it on there. The secondary best methodology would be to talk to finance and set it next Monday, retroactive to this day. Because you're going to pay the
Okay.
anyway.
Do we need to put anything back on the floor to have discussion here of what individuals here would like to
You're
do?
going to put the motion back on the floor for reconsideration and then add amendment to it.
Okay. Do we have a motion to put it back on the floor for reconsideration, to have an
So
amendment
moved.
or whatever? Okay, we have a first, we have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
yes.
Okay, Mr. Bariak?
I
Motion to consider
believe,
is not debatable, sir. You just need to go to the motion.
Okay.
vote on the
All right.
motion.
There's no
Okay.
discussion on it. You have to vote on the motion.
Okay, we vote on that, and then that's when we're able to discuss to see what individuals like
Then
to
you
do.
add the amendment,
Okay.
discuss the
Okay.
amendment.
All right, so if you could call
So
for
this is
the roll
the
there.
motion to reconsider.
Okay.
Ms. Bletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes,
Okay, so it's on the table here, or on the floor here to discuss. Does anybody want to have a first address to
Yes.
talk about what we'd like to do? Mr. Bariak?
I believe right now, I'm not going to be held to every nickel and dime, but I believe our past city manager has made about $1,900 a month.
Yeah, I checked on it.
Is that, am I fair in saying somewhere around there?
Or what? No, it's not 1,900 a month. It was 1,900 a week.
Oh,
I think it was about 89,000 divided by 52 weeks, and I think you come up with about 1,850 a week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, I was figuring, wait, excuse me, Mrs. Splitzer has got it calculated.
$1,711 a week.
Okay. That's
That's
17.
without benefits or anything.
Right, that's just the pay.
Right, it's just the pay.
1711,
Since it's only,
54.
I know Mrs. Purdy has been kind enough to say that she would do it for nothing, but look, she has a business in town, a very decent business that everybody enjoys. It's going to be a hardship, and I believe that she should at least have at least $800 a week.
Okay.
I believe that's
Okay.
more than fair. I don't know what the council thinks. That's a figure I want to throw out there.
Okay, Mr. Zimmerman, Ms. Spletzer, Mr. Kropp, do you have anything that you'd like to throw in there?
I just would like to add that I would like, this deserves to be a paid position, but I would like to see Mr. Fritz involved in the conversations. I'd like to see financial involved in the conversations to see what's a adequate compensation instead of just throwing numbers out here. $800 may be a very good number. I'm not disputing that. I just want to make sure that we have a agreed upon number.
I mean, we could ask
without
Mr. Fritz what he thinks, but finance, that's up to the council to make the decision. It's not the financial person.
May I be recognized, please?
Yes.
The city manager, based on his $89,000 a year contract, was making $1711.54 a week. The other department heads that are getting a $72,000 a year salary are making $1384.61 a week. I think a fair number to start for Mrs. Pretty would be $1,500 a week. We don't want to pay her less than the department heads are getting. So it's a little bit more than the department heads, but it's not as much as what David Lynch was making. It's kind of a middle of the road.
Okay. Mr. Kropp, do you have anything to add there?
I would just like to say, I think that's a fair, what Councilwoman Spletzer just said, a fair amount of fair assessment. And it's always something we can revisit, excuse me, since we're not going to be contractually obligated. I believe it's a number we can revisit as we go. That's all I have, Mr.
Okay, Mr. Fritz, do you have anything you'd like to add on that, your suggestion, or you just want to leave it whatever council decides here?
If it's amended to list a weekly amount, we have enough here to create a contractual arrangement. I have no idea what the finances should be.
Okay. Mr. Kropp was basically in agreement with what Ms. Spletzer had said. I know myself, looking at it coming in, obviously, Ms. Purdy has a good resume, but obviously she's not a seasoned city manager, and that's not what we were looking for. But she graciously stepped forward, but she obviously needs to be compensated. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Barnett?
Do I put the motion on the floor to pay her $1,500 a week?
I mean, I don't have, if that's what you guys want to do, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, Mr. Kropp said so. You said there's two people right there. If
Mr. Klein, Mayor, sir, I just threw a number out there.
Yeah.
I could go along with that.
Okay.
I do feel that with the responsibility, even though for 4 or 5 or maybe 6 weeks, she should be compensated because, my gosh, she's stepping into a lot of unknown territory.
Well, I agree with you. There's a transition that she has to do. She has to go back. She has to pick up a lot of pieces. She's walking into this right now. There's not a city manager in the building. There's not a finance director in the building. There's not a city clerk in the building. The zoning guy's not here for part of the week. So she has her hands full. And so I agree with you 100%. So if you want to go ahead and...
I'd like to make the motion,
Second it.
pay her $1,500 a week. Now you can second it.
Okay. So,
Second it.
Okay, so if Mr. Fritz wants to go ahead and call for the roll.
1 second, sir.
Sure.
Mr. Kropp.
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Abstain.
Mr. Mr. Bariak,
Aye.
Ms. Bletzer.
Yes,
Okay, passes. So at a rate of, what was it, 15?
1,500 a week.
Yes.
Okay.
Now you need to vote on the motion as amended, sir.
What's that?
Need to vote on the motion as amended. Rather than just adding the
All
amendment.
right, okay. Okay, so whenever you're ready to call for the roll.
Mr. Fritz, do you have to read that over again then?
No, if you wish me to, I can. It would be a motion to approve Pam Purdy, 3725 Halleck Road, as interim city manager of Newton Falls for the period of Monday, August 9th, until a permanent city manager is hired at a rate of $150 per week.
1,500.
1,500.
I'm sorry, $1,500 per week. Sorry.
Those are a little too different.
I'm sorry. Mr. Zimmerman,
No.
Mr. Bariak,
Yes.
Ms. Bletzer,
Yes,
Mr. Crop.
Aye.
Okay, passes. All right. Second piece of legislation is a motion to discuss Tom Gregory's proposal for video of meetings as well as local school sporting events. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Variak? Okay, do we have a second?
second.
Second.
Okay, Spletzer.
Sorry, Brian.
Did anybody get a chance to look at what Mr. Gregory had sent? Okay. I don't know if anybody wants to maybe waive the rules of council so Mr. Gregory can
I'll
put his
make a
other...
motion, we suspend the rules of council. I'd like to hear what Mr. Gregory
Before you
has.
suspend the rules, we need to put it on the floor. We didn't do a vote, put it on the floor.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right, we didn't put a vote yet, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
all right.
Jumping the gun.
Mr. Bariak,
For what, to put it on the floor?
Put it on the floor, yes, sir.
Yes.
Ms. Bletzer,
Yes,
Mr. Crop,
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Okay, so it's on the floor, and then we need to now have a motion made to waive the rules of council. Okay, Ms. Spletzer, do we have a
So moved.
second?
Who was the first, who was the second,
Second.
sir?
Mr. Barrier was.
Ms. Spletzer was the first, Mr. Crop was the second. So now I guess we call for the roll for, okay.
Ms. Bletzer,
yes,
Mr. Crop,
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Bariak.
Yes.
Okay, rules of council waived, and it gives Tom Gregory an opportunity to speak on this a little bit better than I would. Where's your assistant at, Tom?
Right here. Yes. First, we'll say how uncomfortable I am with this because I run the camera because I do not want to be on the camera. So thank you for that. Only on that one, and it's only sees me from the back, so that's good. But I do have my audio control here. Thank you, God, for technology. I met with the school system today, and what the school system would like to do is partner with the city for 50%, 50%. Last year and the year before, as well as this year's rate, will be identical to the two previous years, $8,000 for the entire season. So $4,000 from the city, $4,000 from the schools. They're happy to partner with you on that. In previous years, it was 100% from the city. For whatever reason, the schools either could not or would not partner with the city. So that's what's happening with football. Any
may I
questions
ask a
about it?
question?
Yes.
Has the township trustees been approached on any of this either?
To my knowledge,
To me,
no.
it should be more of a three-way street. You know, it's the school, it's the city, and the township.
Yeah, I can understand how you feel that way. There's students from all over. Yeah, that's
Right.
true. To my best of my knowledge, that has never been suggested or approached, so I don't know. Along with, there are 5 home games, and I'm throwing in a 1-camera shooting of every away game that is possible, except, and I've already notified council on this, then again, no, I'm sorry, notified your former city manager on this, I don't know if it got to you, from September 16 to September 30, I am not in Ohio.
Yeah.
I am in Florida with my grandkids in Disney.
Yeah, I seen your paperwork on it.
Okay.
And
So there are a couple away games that I will miss. No home games will miss. If you have, let me go with vacations, if there are any council meetings during that time, I do have a standby person that will be coming in to produce your council meeting, so nothing will be missed. The city will not miss any coverage of your events here. But away football games will not be covered during that period of time. But any other away games, I will go with the one camera. Scott Kernan, who did our basketball commentary, is going to go with me, and he'll give us the voice of the Tigers, you know?
Mayor, may I have a...
Yes.
I would ask now our interim city manager if she would contact the township and see if the township wants to pony up a little bit too. I mean,
I do
think-
know the one issue that we do have is I know that we're on a time restraint on this because the football season is, what is it, about a week away?
Yeah,
That's why I slapped this on the agenda.
9 or 10 days, a week from this coming Friday is the first game. And just for setup and getting everything ready, and I pre-shoot graphics, I pre-shoot the students, so I have graphics to show if the quarterback makes runs for a touchdown, I want to show his picture. So I need to shoot those ahead of time. I need to know if we're doing this by next Monday, a week from today. And I know next Monday is your next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Well, you said the amount, the school was going to go half on the football, so instead of $8,000, it would cost us $4,000, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And you sent figures for soccer, it would cost, I think, $3,000?
Yeah, further on that, what the school system would like to do is, last year, the city paid for the entire basketball season production, all boys and all girls home games. If the city will partner half for basketball, half for the city, half for the schools will fund every other sporting event. So the city would not pay for volleyball, the city would not pay for any soccer games, the schools would pay for those productions 100% by themselves.
Okay, so that's knocked out. So if we paid for half of football, you said, so $4,000.
Half of football is $4,000.
Okay.
Half of the basketball season is $9,000 because there are 23 games.
Yeah, and that's not in your proposal right here.
No, that is not in the proposal because my meeting with the school system was today at 1:30.
So for this 6-month period is what this covers.
Yes.
We would have $2,000 a month for council times 6 months, so $12,000, and then $4,000 for football,
Well,
$16,000.
the $2,000 a month for council, that is all dependent upon council meetings. And that's part of the other reason that I believe I'm standing here. Council meetings are $500 a meeting. I could go to $400 a meeting for special meetings from now on because I would cover those. It's a special meeting with your permission. I'll cover them with less cameras, which means less setup. There would not be the camera to shoot the podium's person's face. That camera would not exist.
Okay, I thought it was a flat rate of $2,000 a month up to
No.
6 meetings. It's not.
No, well, that was a proposal as well. If you like that idea, we could go with that. That's not a problem.
No, I know.
But then if you only have 3 meetings a month, you've paid for a meeting that you're not covering.
Okay.
However, if you have 6 meetings a month, well, then you're getting 2 meetings for free, basically.
So basically, at 3 meetings a month would be $1,500.
14.
Or $1,400.
Yes.
And
I'm sorry, that noise was from my speakerphone. I'm probably getting a text message. Brian Kropp is appearing via my speakerphone. So I apologize for the noise there.
okay, so that's what, a little over $6,000 for 6 months
For,
the council meetings. 1,400 times 6, 1,428,
yeah,
56.
to me, I consider them separate issues, separate items, because I do invoice separately.
Okay.
When I first came on board with Newton Falls, there was a $2,300 per month regular monthly invoice that was contracted for 1 year. That included certain other programs. We were doing Meet Your Public Servant, Newton Falls Means Business. Those programs don't exist. They never really materialized. So about a year ago, I decided rather than a contract at that same rate, I didn't feel it was right. So I went to per event. So I only invoice for what I'm actually doing for Newton Falls. So an invoice for the city council meetings would be separate from an invoice for sporting events. Those would be 2 separate invoices. I think it's easier for me to keep account of it. I would think it's easier for you folks to keep account of it as well.
So right now, what we'd be looking at in this 6-month period is 8,400 for meetings, 4,000 for football.
If you want to cover football, yes. Yes. If you want to include basketball as well, then there's another charge for that.
Yeah.
But I know basketball's, we've got quite a few months for that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying if we right now just looked at the football and the meetings here, that's what we would be looking at in this
For
6-month
council
period.
meetings, Mayor, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, within this 6-month period, it would cost us $8,400 for all of our council meetings, and it would cost $4,000 if we paid for half of the football games.
Tom,
Mr. Mayor, can I be recognized?
Yes,
please let Mr. Crop be recognized.
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Crop.
Mr. Chairman, I listening to the proposal and knowing the proposal from Mr. Gregory, as far as our meetings are concerned, doing it on a per meeting basis seems to make sense because we can do that month to month if we need to, and if we decide to do a contractual agreement, we can do that later. As far as addressing the basketball or any other sports, we also have time for that. I think supporting Mr. Gregory and shooting and splitting the cost with the school for football is something we should probably think about or really consider, but really focus on those two things, the meetings themselves and then the football itself. Since the school's offering to pay half, I think we all agree that we want to support our students and support the school, work together. But let's focus specifically on the meetings themselves and then just the football itself, and then worry about basketball. We have a little bit of time to consider those things. That's all I have, Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Boriak, Ms. Spletzer, Mr. Zimmerman, did you have anything?
The question I wanted to ask,
Yes, sir.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
you need to know this by,
Monday.
so in other words, we have to approve it tonight, whatever money?
If you approve this next Monday's council meeting, that's the deadline. I would have to know, so I understand, I don't know what council rules are as far as an amendment right now, voting on it today. Or does it have to be on the agenda for next Monday? So I'm prepared for next Monday evening.
Yeah.
Tuesday morning, I will start immediately on football.
Here's a thought, like Mr. Crop had brought up, and I kind of like we would be overthinking. If you could just invoice us for the individual meetings.
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
We're not going to do any better than that. We could have one meeting a month and pay $500, and then everybody in the community gets to watch it.
Yeah.
And we could just deal with football tonight, $4,000 for what we're getting and then revisit, not at the last minute for basketball, but a month, 6 weeks from now, something, so that we could try to get the township, since the basketball is a bigger bill. And if we could try to get the township to come in and help out, instead of us paying $9,000, should we get the township to throw in $4,000 or something? Mr. Boriak?
Mr. Chairman, if I may? Oh, sorry.
Hold on a second, Mr. Boriak has something.
Tom,
Yes,
I'm looking at the big picture here.
sure.
You have very, very good service. When there has been a problem, you've been the first one to step up to try to correct it with the public. Since we don't have, is there any way you could sharpen the pencil a little bit? I'd call that negotiating.
I understand that. For a regular...
This isn't my money, it's the taxpayers' dollar.
Well, I'll show you
If I
the
didn't ask
sharpening-
you,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
You have to ask, I
Yes.
understand. And I have to respond with this. For this event tonight, I'm bringing in 4 cameras. I'm bringing in $18,000 worth of camera equipment. I'm bringing in almost $20,000 worth of production equipment back there in the rack with all the software and all the cards in it like that. This should cost you $1,000. I'm charging you $500. I can't go lower than that, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes.
ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Gregory?
Sure.
We've been running under memorandum of understanding for probably a year now, right?
Okay, yeah.
If we isolate out just the football tonight, is that something you can work with and then come back and deal with the other items?
First meeting of
long term.
October.
Yeah, as far as dealing with the council meeting charges, that was sent to you merely for informational purposes, because to my knowledge, the only people that knew about those numbers were myself and your city manager. And I really like the full transparency, the open doors, everything. So, unless, somebody did a public records request, those are all public knowledge as well. So I just wanted you folks to know what was going on. I have been, for a long time, charging, at the end of the month, I send an invoice for the council meetings that were done in that month. So in other words, at the end of July, you got an invoice for the July meetings. At the end of August, you'll get an invoice only for the meetings that were done in August, just as Councilman Crop suggested we do, and that's what we have been doing. So I don't really feel there's a need to vote or a motion or an amendment or anything on that. Like Mr. Fritz says, we just keep rolling the way we are. Sure, I would like a 2-year contract guaranteeing my services here for the next 2 years at X number of dollars. That'd be great, but that's not vital at this point. The vital thing is the football.
Did you have anything, Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes, I have a question. In the letter you sent to Mr. Lynch on Tuesday, July 27th, you specify in here that the mayor and 3 members of council have discussed with you the possibility of having every council meeting broadcast
Yes.
and produced as we do for the main meetings. They would like all special meetings and regular meetings broadcast. I propose a monthly fee. My proposal would be this. Now, I was not involved in these meetings. Can you please let everyone know who the 3 councilmen were that you were having these meetings with?
Oh, this was not a meeting. This was individual discussions.
But it's
with-
discussing city business, so it's a round-robin meeting discussing
Oh,
city
okay.
business.
I apologize. Again, I don't mean to brag, but I'm not a lawyer. Sorry, Joe.
No. And you know what?
Am I wrong
Let
there,
me
Mr.
let me
Fritz?
finish it. If we're going to start playing games, we're trying to do for the community. We're having a real good meeting here. You know, if I talked to him at one point in time and think it was a good idea to have some transparency in our community, and if it was Mr. Boriak, if it was Mr. Crop, if it was you or whoever, that we thought it was a good idea, there's no meeting in that. But it's a good positive thing to go on. If that's the only question you have, that's
Meetings
silly.
like this need to be open to the public, sir. They
There
need
was
to
no
be-
meeting. There was, you know what, quit trying to play gotcha.
Emails discuss-
Quit trying,
Yes, sir.
you don't have the floor. You know, we're gonna go back into regular rules, and here's, you know, unless you have something, Ms. Bletzer, here's the thought. I mean, I think every individual in here has kind of agreed on, other than Mr. Gotcha here, that to continue to invoice individual meetings is a good idea. Do we want to pay the half for football now, which is the $4,000, and then we can rediscuss the first meeting of October for basketball? You know, maybe we can, in the meantime, have, I'm not sure how the steps could be made, but somebody reach out from the school to the township to see if they might be willing to be involved, you know, before October. You know, we can do something like that. But tonight, once we go back into regular rules, looking to continue to invoice, Mr. Boriak.
I haven't had any discussion about, as a matter of fact, I didn't even know the 4,000, the 2,000, or whatever. I had known in the past that the contract had run out, and we were paying him, Mr. Gregory just said $500 a meeting.
Well, meetings were 600. First they were 650 a meeting, and then they were 600. I've gone down to automation with the one camera back there that's motorized, so I control it back there. That freed up some salary that I wasn't paying someone. So,
Mr. Gregory, thank
yes.
you for the information tonight. I hope this council will move forward without negativity and accusations, innuendo. I hope that's my openness. If we have openness, I think this will all fade away real quick, all these accusations.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem. And Mr. Zimmerman, I apologize. There was never. It was just a one-on-one casual conversation. There was never any intent to meet with, have a meeting per se. I thought your rules were at least 2 council people or something had to be there to consider a meeting. So I never any intent to deceive or anything. That's why I send information. I like full disclosure. I like transparency. So that's what I was trying to do.
I never got any information. I don't even have any right now, sir. I don't even
Mr.
have
Chairman, may I have the floor?
Sure.
I'd just like to, I think it's time to get to the point of business, which is the village working with the school and working with Mr. Gregory to produce these football games and taking, you know, being responsible for half of the amount. I think that's what we should be discussing right now, what we should be moving forward with. So I move to bring the rules back and to bring a vote.
All right, do we have a second? Okay, roll call to go back into regular council rules.
Mr. Crop,
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Bariak,
Yes.
Ms. Bletzer.
Yes.
Okay, back in regular council rules. Mr. Fritz, I see if somebody wants to make a motion, like we said, to continue to invoice the individual meetings, to pay for the half cost of football, which comes to $4,000, and to discuss the basketball end of it the first meeting of October. Can we have a motion, if somebody wants to make that motion? Is that?
If I may answer, sir, you're going to authorize the money and direct the interim city manager to do any necessary paperwork to take care of that money and the finance rate. So your legislative act is creating the money, not directing the actual contract itself. So you are directing the interim city manager to honor that, and future city managers to honor that $4,000 towards the football.
Okay. And then how do we do the part about tabling to where we'll talk about basketball in October? That way it gives us some time, but we're also not doing it at the very last moment.
That's why I asked that question to Mr. Gregory. He's willing to have us deal with the one issue now,
Yeah.
and the other issue will be dealt with as time goes on, and you'll be either, if the money is available, you'll be directing the interim city manager or the city manager at the time to enter into the contract. So you'll discuss the specifics of the contract and then direct the administration to enforce that contract.
Okay. All right. Do we have a,
I make the motion.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
What's the motion is to
Football,
pay for one half of football?
yeah.
Half of football
$4,000.
and council meetings.
Yeah. Well,
Invoiced.
Yeah, the council meetings continue as is. He's just been
Yes.
invoicing them individually, so.
So it's a motion to pay one half of the football fees as the proposal of Mr. Gregory. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion on this before we go for the, call for the roll?
Well, I think we
Wait,
need
a
to actually.
second.
First
Yeah,
and
we
second.
need a
Bariak seconded.
Bariak seconded. All right. Any discussion? Okay, if no discussion, if Mr. Fritz wants to go ahead and call for the roll.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Bletzer?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay. Third item is ordinance 2021-13. It's an ordinance to increase the total amount of money payment Newton Falls shall require to sell transmission lines and equipment to include properties and miscellaneous materials in ordinance 2021-02 Rate Reduction Act. The new minimum required payment acceptable to the $10 million to also include a 20% increase as a minimum payment for a service agreement. This is to be negotiated with AMP-T. Do we have a motion?
I make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay, hey, one second. Mr. Fritz, that's what I was going to ask you. Mr. Lynch, as he left, he was questioning if this was legal. What is your opinion on that?
There is, from the information you gave me last week, there's a presumption there's no progress made, there's no contract or anything signed. Assuming there's nothing signed or a preliminary agreement, I've never seen one, but assuming there's none out there, there's potentially an argument if they are at the 11th hour that it is really not in a legislative act, it's an administrative act, and you're changing it partway through. But at this stage, I think 3 votes get you there today, sir.
Hey, that's what I was thinking when he discussed with me. He had never said anything about no agreement, no signature, no nothing. And the way I at least see it, I'm not an attorney, obviously, but I see it as an ordinance being amended.
I mean, I may also ask, I know he's had meetings with the interim city manager. She may know more than I do about how far along they were. I mean, if this is where they were discussing, the last minute or two about something or is getting a final approval from their lawyer, that may put us in a problem. But I don't know about that, sir.
Okay. Mr. Bariak, did you want the floor?
I'm going to go step by step with this, and if I'm wrong, I'll ask Mr. Fritz or Mrs. Splitzer or Mr. Crop or someone to help me along. We have a meeting with the Board of Election on the referendum. Right now, there's no contract signed. Was that just brought on the floor? I want to tell the people one thing. Let's say we lose the referendum, that we're not allowed a referendum. We have nothing. The people did not get to speak, and we're stuck with 4.2 million, or whatever it was. This way, we put it on the floor, we vote for it, it's 2 readings. Should we lose the referendum call, 10 million to me sounds better than 4.2 million. The other thing is, we can always, it's only the first reading, if we get to vote on a referendum, I would probably withdraw my support for this right here. It's another case of just let the people vote. If they want to get rid of their transmission lines, fine. If not, we'll hopefully we'll be well compensated. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else like an address here? Mr. Zimmerman, Ms. Blitzer, Ms. Crop?
I'm just kind of curious where, just in here it says that a greater mandatory minimum is fair value, but I just don't, the 4.2 million was not come upon lightly. And I mean, it was prepared, it was researched, it was provided by our consultant. And that figure was just not pulled out of a hat, whereas 10 million sounds better than 4.2 million. I mean, $1 billion sounds better than 4.2 million too, but by setting something this high, is that us negotiating in, where it says here, negotiations have stalled and not negotiated in a timely manner? Is that us just stalling? Is it us negotiating fairly by throwing that out there? That's my questions.
What it is it's saying we have the power lines, and if you want them, you'll give us what we want for them, that we're not going to give them to you. That the fact of the matter is, we have the opportunity, hopefully, to referendum this, and we can pull this. If not, AMT looks at the amended ordinance. That's all it is an amended ordinance. They look at it and they say, no, you're out of your mind, so we keep our power lines. Or they say, we really want your power lines because electricity is the future. And so we probably should pay you more. We were hosing you before, and now we're not hosing you. So we get 10 million. So that's basically, that's the American way. It's back and forth. It's, you know.
Mr. Chairman, may I have the floor?
Yes.
In reference to negotiations and the deals that were made and the numbers that were arrived at, the 4.2, we really don't know how those numbers were arrived at. We didn't have an opportunity to actually have real dialogue, real discussions with these consultants. If people remember the town halls and the way these things happen, there wasn't a lot of what we would consider actual transparency. There wasn't dialogue. There wasn't an actual involvement in the process. So I think that's why this is important. This could potentially bring this this vendor, these people to the table, and we could renegotiate or have a discussion and actually be involved and be able to bring this information to the people, and then they can make an informed decision. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Blitzer, did you want? Okay, Mr. Borak, did you want a second?
Very, very simply, we do not know the long. This is to 20,053. We don't know who's allowed to sell it, buy it, what they're going to do with it. We can't stop them. There's been really, I've never been involved in any type of negotiation. I've never been involved in seeing fact and figures, how this was derived. I totally agree with Mr. Crop. I'd like to go to the table with this for the people.
Okay. Is that all you have, Mr. Borak?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman, did you want a second address?
Yes.
Okay.
If we lose this deal, and we, as a city, as a village, whatever you want to call us, have to pay for all of the upgrades and the repairs on our equipment. If we have to pay for the upgrades and repairs to the substation, so we have to pay for the repairs to the power lines. And because of that, our rates have to go up. I hope everyone up here is prepared to look everyone here in the eyes and say, the rates went up. It's because we have to pay for our own repairs ourselves. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
What was that, Mr. Crop?
Can I have a second address, sir?
Yes, you can have the floor.
In reference to the sale of the lines and the responsibility, I fully agree with Mr. Zimmerman as far as accountability and those kind of things. And I would look to, if something were to happen hypothetically where these sales didn't take place and we had to replace all of our equipment, I would look to the individuals who failed to maintenance these items for decades and decades prior to this council taking its seat or prior to this administration. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to blame or when it comes to who's accountable, who's responsible, we have to look at who made these decisions and who failed to upkeep or maintenance these things for decades. And those are just facts, those are just realities. I think we have time to talk to our professionals, maybe Mr. Bill George, he could shed some of this as well. I don't know that he was able to really weigh in or give his opinion on those kind of things and where our equipment stands. I think that's important, so just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay,
Is there any way I could add one comment?
just quickly.
Mr. George said when he was here that the stuff is in good shape. One of them's about 7 years old. The other one have a minimum 20-year life expectancy left. I would like to get Mr. Bill George on to reiterate that, so nothing is blowing up, nothing's deteriorated to the point where it's in bad shape. I feel that we need to protect the village from unknown circumstances right now, and this is one way to, as Mr. Crop says, bring them back to the table.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, if Mr. Fritz could call for the roll.
On the motion, Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Blitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to go into executive session for personal matters to consider one or more as applicable, discipline, city clerk, law director? We have a motion.
I would like to amend the motion because we have 2 employees on that list and the 1 employee is not here. I would like to table the portion for the city clerk to the next council meeting, but we could meet with Mr. Fritz.
Okay, either that or you could just drop the city clerk off of it and just re-put it on next Monday.
Okay.
All
I
right.
might make a motion to drop the clerk. Is that
No.
Mr. Fritz? I'm asking Mr. Fritz, is that what we wanted? Can we do it that way, sir?
You can amend this. All you have to do is say we're going to motion executive session for discipline of the law director only, and then it's assumed that we have not dealt with the city manager.
Yeah. City clerk.
I'm sorry,
that's
city clerk.
fine. Yeah, so if we have a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters for the law director, do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, call for the roll call here.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman? Sorry.
No.
Ms. Blitzer? And Mr. Crop?
Yes.
Okay, is that everybody?
He didn't call me.
Ms. Blitzer?
Yes.
I thought I heard a
Okay,
yes.
so we'll adjourn into executive session minus Mr. Crop because he won't be able to come in because of the devices and such. Okay. Mr. Fritz, are we going down to the red room or are we going down here?
Let's go in here.
Okay.
This won't take long.
I have to go pee. I would ask him.
Just our remote speakerphone, just for Joe.
Hey, Brian, it's Joe. Hey, because of the...
Chris, how you doing?
Good.
Is it possible for you to attend the executive session via device?
I would advise against it based upon the fact we don't have an encrypted system and everything in executive session has to stay in executive session. So it becomes problematic.
And this is my personal cell phone.
Retroactive, I'm not going to require as far as my vote warrants and going into executive session also since I'm not present.
Right.
That's not an issue.
One more time, Mr. Crop, you're saying, you're not, well, that's not a problem. No, that doesn't matter. You're allowed to let us go into executive session, yes.
Okay, then I will be present whenever you guys come out. Now, can I ask another question as far as that's concerned, since I'm not going to be physically present?
Sure.
Or even available for the executive session, would it be advisable to abstain from any votes since I'm not present for the executive discussion?
I can't answer that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, can't answer, Brian, sorry.
From an ethics standpoint, what would be the position from an ethical standpoint?
That's what I can't answer. As a parliamentarian, you can do it, because you have the right to have a decision even without being in the session. But as far as the ethics involved, there may be issues, and that's not, you could, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no problem, talk to you soon.
Mr. Fritz.
comments right now, and again,
Wait. I
We
make
have
a
to make a motion to
motion,
reconvene.
We're going to make a motion.
I make a motion to table what we went into executive session for.
okay.
I'll second that motion.
We have a date?
Did we come out of executive session?
Yes.
We called for the vote yet?
Yeah, you got a first and a second. We've already called for the, we've already came out of executive session.
All right,
We have a
that's what I
first and a second to table. When do you want to table it for? Mrs. King's not here next Monday. Do you want to table it for next Monday, or do you want to wait until the first?
If I may, you don't need to table it. You can reinstitute the motion as part of the agenda at the next meeting, as long as it's by noon Wednesday, or the following necessary meetings. You can renew that motion at any point. If
Okay.
you don't need to have a
Our
specific.
first meeting in September should be September 7th.
I will not be available.
You're not available September 7th.
That is correct.
When is Mrs. King supposed to be back?
Sometime after the 16th, sometime after, yeah, she's off for a week, sometime after the 16th.
Well, why don't we call for a special meeting? No?
No.
I mean, if it were me, I would just think about what you want and address it next week.
September 20th is the next regular meeting after the 7th.
So the motion table until September.
September 20th, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Bletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Okay, so it's tabled until September 20th. Public comments, anybody would wish to speak. Agenda items only, 3 minutes. Give your name and your address. Okay. All right, if nobody wants to speak, then does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, second, and we'll call for the roll.
Ms. Bletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned.